everyone. Thank you very much for coming up early. Please grab a cup of coffee. So this is our second meeting of FY 2020 Advisory Committee. Today, very important agenda. We invited our colleagues from our school system, community college, libraries, and also our police department. These are kind of our most important services, top priorities to our citizens here. So I think if you want to get your team start with the school system, and everybody has about 20-ish minutes to do their presentation, talk about their services, their challenges, their physical needs there, and we have about 10 minutes for the group to ask questions. Thank you.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Guess I'm starting everybody off today. So I'll be presenting three major areas for the school system, our public school system. One is the operating budget, the 2020 capital budget, and of course, highly urge that we present some enrollment growth, how we get most of our numbers. So we're doing those three today. Again, my name is Rafiu Ohihila. I am the CFO for the public school system. So the proposed FY 2020 superintendent's operating budget starts off with a very bold agenda. So our goal is that I'm pleased today to present some of the budget process that we went through in putting together the superintendent's budget. Of course, right now the budget is with the board. So the board is deliberating. We're having work sessions and all to decide what the board would do, because the board will end up presenting their budget to the county executive, which will be coming equally to the county council. So, well, our proposed FY 2020 operating budget is guided by our strategic call to action, learning, and leading with equity. The budget set forth a roadmap for educating, nurturing, providing the best start in life to our almost 59,000 students, and taking care of the staff members who are entrusted with our students' care. So in May 2017, Dr. Morado took the helm of the school system that was in chaos. And under his leadership, over the past 19 months, we have worked hard together and to reestablish our system, to restabilize our system. We have come a long way with the progress that spans across academics, students' well-being, school capacity, operations, finances, community engagement, and transparency, as well as reestablishing strong and productive relationships with our county and state leaders. We have carefully audited programs and processes, have dug deep to gain a more complete picture of the true scope of our structural challenges and needs. So what are our priorities? The FY 20 budget proposal reflects the impact of several major factors: rapid enrollment growth, students and staff well-being, creating a 21st century learning environment, providing a safe and sustainable infrastructure, putting the school system on a solid financial footing, and that is eliminating the deficit that we currently have in our health fund, honoring our negotiated benefits and salary increases, achieving the objective of the strategic call to action. The community, the government, and state system face significant challenges in meeting the growing cost of the school system. You know that. So, Howard County is among the fastest growing county in Maryland, and no abatement to our growth is in sight. We must expect that even more students will enter our school system, our classroom, year after year. We expect to welcome 850 students to our system next year, which will bring our student population to a projected 58,757, up from the 57,907 today. The budget proposal includes funding for 74.7 new general education positions to support enrollment growth, plus 131.7 new special education positions to support students' growth, and program and placement needs from birth to age 21, our special needs. These increases will allow us to continue to provide each student with a quality education in a safe, welcoming, and supportive learning environment. So, to provide the needs for our school system, and the objectives of the strategic call to action, this proposed budget includes additional positions. These positions are 147.1 additional special education positions to raise the level of services provided and ensure equity and consistency throughout the school system. Another 126 positions to improve mental health support services. I think we all acknowledge there have been quite a few mental health issues within our school system. 66 positions to invest in maintaining high quality organizational practices. So, where does our funding come from? And I think that's critical for us. But the primary source of revenue for the Howard County Public School System is the appropriation from the county government. The county request is currently at $722.9 million, which represents a maintenance of effort level of funding of $592.7 million as provided in state law, based on increase of 1,031 students, plus $95.3 million projected to protect our people and invest in educators and students. 27 to eliminate the head fund deficit. We've augmented that by the proposal to include our fund balance of $10 million from the general fund balance to eliminate the current $37 million in a head fund deficit. And then, of course, the $7.9 million for community support. The request of $722.9 million represents 72.4% of our total funding request. In FY 2020, approximately 850 new students that are not part of our maintenance of effort calculations are projected to enroll in Howard County Public School System. This increased enrollment, along with negotiated salary increases and employee health benefit costs, mental health initiative, funding for deferred maintenance, staff increases in general and special education, including paraeducators and student assistants, increased safety and security measures, technology strategic plan, non-public placement costs, replacement of deferred textbook purchases, and the elimination of the head fund deficit, resulting in an increase of $136.1 million, or 15.8% over FY19. The set funding figure is preliminary right now. At this point, we estimate 257.8. Just to digress a little bit, on Friday, we got the very first draft from the state, and our projection increased by approximately $9 million. So we've informed the board that we are getting an additional $9 million. So if the board adopts the $9 million, that will reduce our ask from the county by $9 million. So the state funding will now be about $266 million as compared to what we have in the superintendent's budget of $257.
So I think thank you for sharing with the group about the governor's proposal on that. Is it 6 point some percentage growth from the state?
Yes.
Like 16 to 17?
Yes, approximately 17. Yes, that we're getting instead of the projected 8. So we are very excited about that. We got it late Friday, and we immediately notified our board of this the initial draft. Unfortunately for us, we do not get a final draft till late May or even early June, which makes it difficult. But we know the numbers most likely won't fluctuate that much, so we believe it's going to stay within that range.
And also, could you share with us for the county MOU calculation represent how much dollar increase?
The maintenance of effort?
Yeah.
Okay. But right now, based on this, it's about 20%. So if we take back out the 9, then it reduces to about 17% increase.
No. What's the maintenance of effort required?
I'll get to that.
Okay.
Oh, there's more details. So other revenues estimated at $17.7 million, includes income from fees of our school, use of our school facilities, gate receipts for student performances and athletic events, investment interest income, fees for out-of-county students assigned to HCPSS, summer school tuition, federal E-rate rebates, and of course our fund balance. So now into more details. Ali, this is what you were asking about. So to further break the county funding down a little bit more, the county proposed, the county provided $581.9 million maintenance of efforts, which is the maintenance of efforts line, plus the additional funding of MOE, make up the $581.9 million based on in funding for this current year, FY19. And that is the basis of our FY 2020 maintenance of effort calculations. For FY 2020, the county is required to provide student funding for 1,031 students based on last year's total MOE of course the $581.9 million. So the $592.7 million is an increase of $10.8 million. Not enough to cover the expenses serviced by last year's $11.1 million provided by the county as a one-time funding rather than being included as part of our maintenance of effort. In effect, creating an impact of $0.3 million reduction based on our increased enrollment. So last year, this current year, FY 2019, we got $600 million from the county because of the one-time funding of 11.1. So with maintenance of effort, we are expecting $592.7 million. So an additional request above MOE of $95.3 million to meet the needs of our school system. Of course, if the board again adopts the $9 million, that will reduce this 95 to $86 million. So in addition, we are requesting another $27 million to fully eliminate the head fund deficit. Services the school system provides to the community that are funded by county are not part of our maintenance of effort. So the head fund deficit. So one of the factors that has really plagued our budget planning process is the need to address the deficit in our employee head fund, which accumulated over several years to the point where last year it was projected to reach $50 million. So in FY 2019, we fully funded the head fund for the first time in several years and embarked on an ongoing austerity program to contain expenses and improve efficiencies. So we were able to trim the outstanding $50 million deficit by $13 million by close of FY 2018. And that was a collaborative effort. The board charged to the superintendent was find efficiency, find savings, and reduce that deficit. So if we didn't change our ways, yes, it would have ended at $50 million. But we did everything and we were able to get $13 million in savings. That reduced that deficit. So in FY 2008, the audit presented, of course, to our board in November, identified an additional $10 million surplus. As a result, this budget, as proposed, appropriate $10 million from the HCPSS General Fund balance to further reduce the deficit as a result of that surplus. And that reduces our request to the county by an equivalent amount. This appropriation will bring the outstanding deficit down to 27. So for FY 2020, representing a very significant reduction from the projected $15 million. So that was huge. So how did we get that $13 million? It was a collaboration of everything. We reduced spending. We looked at, before we spent money, we reviewed it, looked at it, made sure it was needed to enhance our classrooms, the learning of our students. So it was tough, but we did it. Unfortunately for us this year, because the budget is so lean, I don't know if we can find those savings. Those austerity measures are still in place, and finding them is almost impossible, but we're doing everything we can. So, the budget is a snapshot. So the FY 2020 operating budget totals $998.4 million, an increase of course, $136 million, or 15.8% compared to FY 19. This increase in expenditure is primarily attributable to increased enrollment, along with salary increases for our negotiated agreements, rising employee health benefit costs, mental health initiative, funding of deferred maintenance, staff increases in general and special education, including paraeducators and student assistants, increased safety and security measures, technology strategic plan, non-public placement cost, replacement of deferred textbook purchases, and elimination of the head fund deficit, resulted in this increase. As you can see, instruction and fixed charges are our biggest chunk. So, the majority of the operating budget, 84.6%, goes to pay salaries and associated benefits for our school system employees. So total compensation and benefits expenditures account for approximately $845 million, which includes the cost of an employee salary placeholder, based on the agreement we just negotiated. The remaining 15.4% of the $153.4 million of the operating budget is spent on non-compensation related costs. The major expenditures in these areas are $37.7 million in transportation service providers. These are our biggest non-salary transactions, excluding, of course, administrative costs. $18 million in utilities, $14.2 million for instructional supplies and materials for schools, $15.9 million in non-public placement, including $11.9 million for tuition and $4 million for transportation costs of nearly 265 students receiving special education services attending non-HCPSS schools. So $18.8 million in technology services and computers, and $25.6 million in maintenance costs for building, supplies, and equipment. After mandatory personnel, transportation, and other related costs account for discretionary spending, only accounts for about 4% of the total budget. So, throughout this budget process, well, Dr. Monrado has emphasized the importance of developing a budget that identifies the funding needed to educate our students in line with their needs and county expectations. At the same time, we take very seriously our responsibility to fiscal integrity and continuously strive to find cost efficiencies throughout our system. Responsible funding doesn't end at the conclusion of, our budget adoption process, but we implement during the current year a cost to complete, which we take year-to-date actual expenses and project them out for the remaining expenses throughout the end of the year. by taking these spending snapshots throughout the year, we are able to reassess whether our current budgeting assumptions are accurate, or if we have been adjustments and identify any savings. So, with the chart, see, that's our request. The board has not adopted their budget yet, so that will come up hopefully February 12th. So our timeline, of course, we presented the budget. We presented the budget on December 18th to the board. And of course, the board has had one public hearing. We've had 2 work sessions and 2 more work sessions to come. And of course, 1 more public hearing to come as well. The current schedule, the board adopts the budget request on February 12th. And of course, it will be coming to the county, and the final budget will be adopted May 30th. So now moving on to the capital.
Excuse me.
Any questions?
Move on operating budget. Looks like the bulk of new positions have to do with special ed and mental health. Are those part of any kind of state mandate or law degree, or is it part of something that they've just determined internally that they need?
We've been underfunding people within special ed for a while, and here we're talking about non-public. I don't know about, I think we're meeting some of the requirement. We're way below the state mandated requirement. However, we've, due to budget constraints, we've not been able to fund all the folks we need, all the positions we need in special ed. So this budget was trying to keep to that pace. Because we know most of the issues we are having within our school system now do require some of those needs. So
it's not part of the mandate, just part of the internal, what they need to maintain the effort.
Our funding, the requested positions, based on enrollment growth, we've not met that threshold. So this budget is to keep up with that pace. So when the first session of the operating budget, where I said the enrollment increases, that was based on what we've been doing, but not the catch-up of the backlog of positions that we've not filled. So yes, there is a component of state mandate, as well as internal, to keep our school system at the level that we're used to.
A quick clarification point on the maintenance efforts on that, just for the benefit of the audience there. The chart, you have a breakdown of maintenance and versus other cost components there. But to clarify, the superintendent's request for the county is not only $123 million higher than last year's county funding, but also roughly $123 million above the maintenance efforts. Part of the reason is that student enrollment, formula-driven maintenance efforts, if I recall correctly, is roughly 11.2 million growth on that. However, last year's county funding to the school system included 11.4 million one-time investment to help close the gap in the health benefit fund. So if you take out that 11.4 million in last year's as a base, then the actual county funding, if you purely based on maintenance efforts, is basically level compared to last year.
That's what I said. The total will be 592. I did say the maintenance of effort, based on last year's number, will be $592.6 million. That will be the maintenance of effort calculations.
Right.
Yes.
So that combined with...
And this year we got 600 million. So if you base that, what we're getting maintenance of effort to actual funding for FY19, that's a reduction of $0.3 billion.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's roughly flat compared to last year. That's based on maintenance efforts.
Yes. I can show you where that is. I did acknowledge that. There you go. Sure.
On the superintendent's proposed budget for FY20, the additional maintenance of efforts of $95 million. Hypothetically, if that was provided, that would be the basis for, that would be added into the 92, become the basis for future years?
Yes. Yes.
Raphael, I think you said fixed charges was, fixed charges were Go back to the chart. Yeah. Is it a big chunk? What's included in fixed charges?
Primarily, the health fund, workers' comp, and some of our technology folks, which are fixed charges throughout the entire school system. Those are the three major components in there.
Okay.
Right here.
Yes.
Just a quick question. On the slide with the positions, it said there was 206.4 new positions. And then the next slide was a breakdown with mental health. You know, what's the difference between the two slides?
This slide is driven by maintenance of effort based on this current year's projection. This is what this slide does. Because even though we don't fund the 850 new students, it's not part of the calculation, but that's what we are looking forward to. Those are the new students we have. So the budget that we are requesting for, even though it doesn't actually address that, in order to meet that goal, this is what we need. So this is really how, even though there's a backlog, but we have to look at the future. That's really where we're going. The calculation doesn't meet our needs because of the way the state calculate maintenance of effort. It's based on actual data, not future data.
I think maybe I asked my question wrong. This slide says there's 206 new positions, but the next slide totals 339 positions. So I'm not understanding.
This is the additional positions we talked about for special ed, the 147, in addition to special education.
So it would be 272 new positions?
Correct, yes.
So it's 500
And,
positions?
yeah. And then 126 for mental health and staff well-being.
So the budget's asking for 545 new positions.
Correct.
This is kind of a two-part question, but in my travels around the community, I hear that we have a disproportionate number of special ed students because our services are so good that people are attracted to this community. Do we have data that supports that sort of myth or belief? And second of all, if that's the case, then can you tell in a number of new students, is there a disproportionate number that are special ed? Can we understand that piece of our budget better? Is there more data that could be available from that?
I don't have that data for this disproportionate number of both special ed and student population.
Right.
But we do acknowledge what you just said, that more people are moving to the county, and that does put a huge strain on our special ed. And of course, it looks like we are not fully providing the service, because that's the complaint we hear, that they've been getting these services, now they can no longer get it. It's not because we are not funding it, but because more are coming, so the funding can catch up with the pace of the influx of people coming in.
So is that anecdotal data, is that something that you can do some research and have actual?
I can definitely
I
provide
would
some of
actually
that.
even be interested in like the growth in other counties. I mean, it just feels like that's something where I've never had enough kind of data to understand that question.
Yeah, I can definitely provide that information.
Thank you. Just in terms of percentages as opposed to dollars, what percentage growth in enrollment do we have? The 850 new kids, like what percentage growth is that? From last year to this year? Oh, I'm sorry. The additional number of children.
Of children. Renee, do you have that exact number there with you, the percentage growth?
Hold on.
Because I do have Renee Kamer is our school planning manager, so most of the projections for our student growth comes from her office. So I want to make sure I get the.
It's about 1.5, I think.
Yeah, it's
It's
about
not, yeah, it's
1%.
not up to 2%, it's less than. Yeah.
Okay, so 1.4-ish%.
Yes.
In terms of total request of the budget, what percentage increase from last year to this year?
In terms of, for this new enrollment?
No, the total budget. So we had about a 1.5% enrollment growth. What's the percentage budget increase from last year to this year?
Total 15.8.
The costs are increasing 10 times faster than enrollment.
Yes, because due to budget constraints, we've not been able to catch up to how the school system should have kept pace.
Compared to what? How do you determine what you're benchmarking against?
Well, a number of factors. One, our healthcare cost was not fully funded for several years, and I think based on the data that I've been looking at for the past 11 years, the first time that healthcare fund was the health fund was funded fully was this current year by our board. In the past, we have a cost share of 85, 87 share for the school system, and then the employees pays 13, 15%. We've been funding in the past years about 65%. So which means we'll be putting money to meet other needs, and of course fixed charges, and fixed charges are your known cost. Once you hire an employee, those costs becomes real. Unfortunately, we're not funding it, so, and that's how we got to some of these issues that we currently have. And then you have a question?
Yeah. What's been the growth in non-teaching positions, non-teaching central office positions over the last 2-3 years?
Well, this current year, there was a reduction. We move, of course, I'm new to the school system. I'm not an educator, so I'm learning all the nuances. And so we move 47 positions out of central office. But I can't tell you all of that. We are let go because if you have your tenure, you have a certificate, a certificated teacher, we can only move you to the classroom. You can't be let go. So I think approximately about 18, 19 people were actually let go because they were not certificated positions.
So that's teaching positions? But
no, they were in central office.
Central office?
Yes, so but when you have to move, you cut those positions, and for certificated positions, they have the option is that they go back to the classroom, which means you don't hire teachers, you move them to the classroom. Because that's the way the state mandate works. If you have a certificate, you're a certified teacher, and you're working in central office, you can be
just a policy person in central office? Or
that's what I'm saying. About 19 were let go, yes. Approximately 19 this year were let go.
And then, do we not currently have any mental health and well-being? I mean, 126 positions seems like, how many current people do we have doing mental health and well-being?
I don't think there has been, we don't have any specialists in terms of mental health and well-being in the school system now.
So
we do have some nurses, not nurse schools.
Hire of 126 at once?
It's something we're discussing with our board. Yes. This is the superintendent's ask, so the board will deliberate and make adopt their own budget. Yes.
So the budget for this year, the superintendent's budget for this year includes fully funding the healthcare costs that occur this year. So that's why the deficit won't grow, right? So it's 37 million.
Yes.
And then the $10 million in the general fund is, Holly, you mentioned that the 11 million one-time allocation from the county, that was to help fund some of the healthcare.
That was fiscal 19.
Yeah, that 11 million.
Money from use of county's own.
How much of the 11 million was was allocated towards?
Everything.
That's all.
The entire 11 million that went to head for.
Okay, so then that's where the 10 million in the general fund's coming from.
No, for next year,
Yeah.
we ended FY 2018 in the general fund at a surplus of $10 million. And the board and the superintendent have made it very clear last year during the budget process that if there is any surplus, the first step will be to reduce that head fund deficit. So the superintendent is now proposing that entire $10 million surplus we got in FY 18 to use to pay down that deficit.
Yeah.
So we currently have $37 million as of the end of FY 18. So we're proposing $10 million to reduce it to 27. And then our request is equally asking the county to alleviate that deficit. Because without a deficit, it's easier to now focus on your needs. When you have that deficit hovering around, it's always difficult to make some critical decisions.
No, I understand. And then so what the idea is that the structural funding within the budget covers those costs on a go-forward basis.
Yes,
So there won't be an additional, and so the $27 million is kind of a one-time.
that's truly a one-time, yes.
So of the 37 million, the county will have funded 37 million of it.
The county will fund 27, the school system is putting.
So they gave you 10 last
10.
year.
No, 10 for next year.
Yeah, but they gave you 10 last year you didn't use, and you got 27
11?
this year.
11.
11, we used it. See,
But you said you saved $13 million.
That's from
to
additional
reduce
sources.
the deficit from 50 to 37.
That's just FY18, I think it was.
I get that. So you save, and I'm just trying to understand the numbers here. So when we get to the, okay, so $37 million was the projected year-end fiscal 19. The current year we're in right now, fiscal year 19 is $37 million. It was
That's what we have now, yes.
It was 50. You
No.
It was 22.2.
Your start here.
No, this year, the beginning deficit is 37. You are right for this current year.
Okay, for the current year we're in. Last year when you were talking, you were expecting that it was going to get to 50.
Yes,
It never got to 50 because you were able to save $13 million.
correct.
The county gave you $11 million last year towards it. Did that go towards the
No.
50 or the
It was
37?
$11 million towards this year.
19.
19, not 18.
Okay, but fiscal year 19, you see, there's 37 and 37.
The $11 million was to make sure that we don't add to that deficit because there was still a structural problem in order to meet all our needs.
I understand, but I'm just trying to listen to what you said. You said that you were able to save from cutting costs everywhere else $13 million.
Yes,
The county gave you another $11 million.
not in 18.
No, in
Two
19.
different years now.
In 19.
Yes. See, that's
So
the
where
problem
did
with
that
our
11
budget.
million go?
You have three, see, every time you're looking at the budget for government and for school system, you are looking at 3 separate years. We are projecting 20, we are still in 19. We don't know where 19 is going to end yet.
So so the 11 and 19 was used to cover current year costs.
Correct.
Not the deficit.
Yes.
Gotcha.
But the only way, the way we get that one time has to be an agreement between the county, the school system, applying to MSD, the state board, that they have to agree that yes, we allow you to use this one time. However, they equally make sure that they won't be revisiting that in FY 2020. So the agreement, we are going to approve it this year for that one time, but you have to demonstrate that you are going to fully fund it next year, because that $11 million was not a true one time.
That's where
you're going. I know where
I'm
you're
looking
going.
at it and saying,
It's not a
that's
true
not
one time.
time.
The true one time is this 37, because it's now a known fact. It's a deficit. That's true one time. Everything else is an ongoing cost.
And what's the total healthcare cost as a dollar amount on an annual basis?
For this current year, it's about 142.
140.2?
$142 million. And for FY 2020, it's close to $151 million.
And FY 2020 includes the new positions.
There are no new positions in the head for. Yes, it does. Yes. Because the benefit cost, yes.
Okay.
Any more questions on the operating budget?
I just wanted to answer a question regarding the mental health. We currently do have 68.4 FTEs for psychologists within the system right now.
Those are primarily for IEPs, 401s, or 504s, right?
Yes.
So they're for educational purposes?
Yes.
Okay.
That's why I meant when I said we don't have, the way we're proposing now, we currently don't have it structured that way. Okay, capital improvement program. So, step right in. So for FY 2020, the Board of Education proposed capital budget totals $91.9 million. It includes continued funding requests for the planning and construction of Talbot Springs Elementary School replacement, new high school number 13, and Hobart High School renovation and addition. Other project requests include funding for systemic renovation, detailed in the systemic renovation project, as well as roofing projects, playground equipment, relocatable classrooms, technology, planning and design, and barrier-free projects. We'll also look at the request in more details. So, Talbot Spring. The Talbot Spring Elementary School replacement project will replace the existing school and expand educational program spaces. The total replacement cost is estimated at $41.6 million, with the project currently scheduled for completion in September 2022. The FY 2020 proposed budget includes $9.5 million for further planning and design construction. Timeline. High School number 13. A new high school number 13 will be a new facility to accommodate the growth in HCPSS. The total project cost estimated for high school number 13 is $129.6 million. The project is currently scheduled for completion in September 2023. The FY 2020 proposed budget includes $15.6 million to further plan and prepare for construction of the new high school. Hobart High School renovation and addition. Project will renovate and expand the existing school by approximately 200 seats. The total project cost estimate for Hobart High School renovation and addition is $99 million. The project is currently scheduled for completion in September 2023. The FY 2020 proposed budget includes $12.5 million to further plan, for further planning and design and begin construction. Systemic renovations. A project includes projects that are needed to bring older facilities up to current standards in lighting, electrical, HVAC system, reconfiguration of spaces, providing for upgrades to other building systems. The project also requests emergency reserve funding in order to prepare for any unforeseen system needs. Project schedule for systemic renovations in FY 2020 have a proposed budget of $37.8 million. These are the list of all the systemic projects that we already have in the budget. So the long-range systemic renovation projects are presented as individual project lines in the FY 2020 proposed capital budget and the FY 2021 to 2025 capital improvement program. As our building age, systemic renovations are becoming more and more important to maintain the quality of our aging assets. This systemic CIP represents the projected cost a year to perform the renovations identified as priorities. So roofing projects. They are essential to protecting the entire building. Roof replacements at Pointers Run Elementary School and Murray High Middle School are scheduled for this point for FY 2020. And the proposed budget is $5 million to complete these two roof replacements. Playground equipment. The playground equipment project requests funding to maintain a cycle of playground replacement system-wide. In FY 2020, $200,000 is adequate to replace both a kindergarten playground and a grades 1 to 5 playground at an elementary school. The FY 2020 proposed budget is $250,000 for a playground replacement at one elementary school. Relocatable classrooms. The relocatable classroom project provides funds for the relocation of existing portable classrooms or purchase of new portable classrooms to be placed at schools in need of additional capacity. Additional classroom spaces are needed to help relieve overcapacity schools until such time as permanent classrooms spaces are available. In FY 2019, the request was reduced from $2.5 million to $1.8 million. Therefore, the FY 2020 proposed budget includes the FY 2019 reduction of $700,000 plus the annual request of $2.5 million, for a total of $3.2 million. This will allow for completion of the scheduled new purchases, relocations, and demolition of units.
Real quick question. So when we're renovate or build a new school and the old school had to relocate with classrooms, we are able to reuse those, so we move them somewhere else that needs them?
It depends on the life cycle of the actual unit, how many times it's been moved before.
What's the life cycle of the typical?
Anywhere from 16 to 18 years.
Okay.
It's kind of like a roof. If you keep really good care of it, it can last longer.
And for is there a number that gets something into from deferred maintenance to the capital budget? Like, as you mentioned, you had a deferred maintenance line item in the operating budget. Is it $100,000 or more and then moves to the capital budget?
I think Scott Washington is our Director of School Planning and Construction. Yeah.
Good morning. A couple things gets it moved over. Number one, as you've already said, there's a number of deferred maintenance projects. Yeah. They're prioritized based off of need. And pretty much it's not a matter of the dollar value, it's a matter of the actual need. So pretty much when we go through the list and see where it fits on the list in terms of the critical nature of it, that will move it further into the capital budget faster because we need to get to it quicker.
Is there a dollar, and not to that point, but if we were spending more on an annual basis as a county in deferred maintenance, and we were, I'm just going to make numbers up, if we're giving $10 million a year now for deferred maintenance, and we started giving $20 million a year to cover deferred maintenance in the operating budget, would that extend out the useful life of some of these facilities, and would it therefore cost us less in the long run?
Absolutely, because pretty much one of the challenges we have right now is because of budgetary constraints, we can only do so much deferred maintenance at one time. If that is increased, we can get to those projects quicker. As it is right now, we pretty much, based off of the needs of those facilities, try to, for lack of a better word, maintain those most critical areas as fast as we can right now. But if we had more money, that would bring that deferred maintenance budget down considerably over time. We'll bring it down faster.
All right. Well, again, we are the Board of Education recently approved a fundamental shift in the way technology is purchased and maintained across the school system. The strategic plan introduced a standard classroom infrastructure package for teachers and students to increase equity and access of technology in supporting instruction and digital literacy. So the FY 2020 proposed budget requests $5.5 million for the next phase in the incremental rollout of technology upgrades. So just to quickly go back here, the standard package is a projector in the classroom, and of course a laptop with devices for students to be able to interact with through instruction. The goal is not one-to-one. The goal is, we've structured it, is based off of need that was developed by our curriculum folks. Technology can't tell you how many should be out there. It's how we're using it for instructional purposes. So this was a very collaborative effort to get this plan going. So the planning and design projects allow the scope studies to be conducted before a project receives funding on its own project line. Some of the benefits include the ability to ask technical questions before the formal design process, discover unexpected design circumstances in existing buildings, selecting the most advantageous project scope, and can significantly reduce the number of change orders needed during the construction phase of the project. So in FY 2020 proposed budget request is $400,000 for that purpose. Also requested in FY 2020 proposed budget is $2 million to restore a balance in the site acquisition and construction reserve project. The barrier-free project is used to implement needed ADA requirements in current buildings across as access issues arises. This project did not receive any funding in FY 2019. The project request of $200,000 is being put in this budget as a barrier-free project for upcoming adjustments needed. So the FY 2021 to 2025 capital improvement program outlines the project request in these out years. In addition to the projects with funding requests in FY 2020, our project includes new high school, new elementary school 43, projected to open in September 2024. Dunlogan Middle School Renovation and Addition to open in September 2024. Ellicott Mills Middle School Addition. Oakland Mills Middle School Renovation. New Elementary School 44. Centennial High School Renovation and Addition. New High School number 14. As well as future project funding for ongoing projects. All of these are scheduled to open between 2023 to 2028. By the FY 2020 proposed capital budget is $91.9 million. In years 2021 through 2025, the projected capital budget is higher, ranging from $104 million to $134 million each year. So the long-range master plan through 2029 totals $1.1 billion and includes new elementary school number 45. So the board, again, must approve the state priority listing for state capital projects request. The state priority list is aligned with the FY 2020 proposed capital budget and the CIP. The list the board receives is the entire priority list for potential state projects. The first four listed here are projects eligible for state construction funding in FY 2020, and the last is eligible for local planning approval. We estimate at this time the state funding may be approximately $6 million as we proceed in the state request process. We'll keep you all posted. This again is the timeline. The final budget again will be adopted along with the operating budget on May 30, 2019. I know the next slide is mainly on the enrollment projections. Highly specifically asked for that so we all can understand the growth in our school system. So we'll begin here to look at the net enrollment growth. The waterfall chart depicts the influx and exflux of students in 2016 and 2017, with a net outcome of substantial enrollment growth. Included in the projected increase in enrollment is the projected cohort of incoming kindergartners, and include in the decrease is the projected graduating seniors. So as people come in, people leave, so it's kind of a mix. So countywide enrollment trend, the upward trend is projected to continue and can be seen historically in this graph, which represents a continual county-wide enrollment growth over the last 10 years. Between 2008 and 2018, there has been a 16.4% increase in K through 12 enrollment growth. So, looking forward, our goal, our projects significant enrollment growth over the next decade of approximately 8,600 new students, resulting in a capital budget that incorporates both additions and several new schools in future years. Funding for the new growth will be a great challenge. The 8,600 growth is the change between the actual for 2018, which is 56,570 students to a projected number of 65,435 in 2029. So the next few slides show a comparison between the first year projections and actual students enrollment at the elementary school, middle school, and high school levels, as well as county-wide. The positive number reflects a projection lower than actual enrollment, and the negative number reflects a projection higher than the actual enrollment for over 10 years. HCPSS has had an excellent projection accuracy track record over the past 10 years. The countywide error rate has ranged from 0.05% to 1.1%. I would say that's statistically spot on. So over the 10 years for elementary school projection accuracy, the enrollment rate for elementary school level has ranged from 0.16% to 1.45%. And for middle school, over the past 10 years, the error rate has ranged from 0.03 to 0.77%. Over the past 10 years, the error rate for high school level has ranged from 0.01% to 1.32%. The enrollment and projection chart illustrates 5 years of actual enrollment compared to the first year projections at both school levels and totals by region for 2014 through 2018.
Thank you so much for giving us very comprehensive presentation in collaboration with your teams there. We'll take some time. If anybody has questions, just email me later rather than take time here. We really appreciate you and your team on that. Yeah, thank you. Our next speaker is from Community College.
I can talk loud. Hopefully you can hear me. So I'm Lynn Coleman. I'm the Vice President of Administration and Finance at Howard Community College. And so I'm going to talk to you about our the community college right now. Just to let you know what our business model is at this point, we are an open access institution, and students come to us with varying levels of proficiency and readiness for their academic experience. So we have students that may be in remedial courses and students who are fully prepared to enter college. When you look at our overall enrollment, in our credit area we have 14,291, and that the average age of our student in that credit area is about 26, and in non-credit it's about 15,407, and that average age is 37. Most of our students are part-time, so it takes them a little longer to complete because they are working and they have other jobs. About 40% of our students get associate degrees, and about 35% go on and transfer to four-year institutions. Our students come to us from about 111 countries, and 50% of our students actually got financial aid. Now, the way our tuition works is we have in-county rates, out-of-county rates, and out-of-state rates. So an in-county student would pay about $164 a credit hour, about $4,900 for the year. Out-of-county would pay $252 and about $7,600 for the year, and out-of-state would pay about $300 or about $10,000 for the year. A little less than 25% of all Howard County high school graduates come to HCC, so that surprises a lot of people how many graduates we get. And then when we look at the competition that we have in the state, 40% of all county residents who are attending undergraduate institutions are at Howard Community College. And then you can see the next largest is University of Maryland College Park, and on down in UMBC. Over the past few years, Howard has been the leader in growth in the state. We have grown since 2007 about 31%. Now this is showing a state average of actually a decrease when you look at the average among the community colleges. And one of the things that happened during the period with when we had the recession in 2008, community colleges grew dramatically, and now they're kind of leveling off in the state does our projections for us, and actually this is what they had given to us in July. So this is what they are projecting us to grow over the next 10 years, about a little less than 27%. And right now our spring enrollment is up. The destinations for most of our students after they graduate are College Park, Towson, and UMBC. And then I have a slide that basically shows how affordable we are compared to our competitors. So if a Howard County resident went to school at any of these other locations, we're the best packed in town. So let's talk a little bit about our unrestricted budget. As a public institution, we have a governing board, and our primary sources of funding are from tuition and fees, the county government, and the state of Maryland. So you can see our actual last year, 41% was tuition and fees, another 36% from the county, 19% from the state, and 4% from other sources like the bookstore and other auxiliaries. Our major budget issues are our merit increase, our adjunct faculty pay, and our full-time, part-time ratio. I'm going to come back and talk a little bit more about the merit increase and the adjunct ratio, but the full-time, part-time ratio, the Maryland Higher Education Institution has a guideline of 50-50, 50% full-time faculty, 50% part-time faculty. We currently have 42% full-time faculty and 58% part-time faculty. So in our budget next year, in order to get to the 50-50, we would have to add 14 new faculty members, but we will be asking for about 4 faculty members to help grow that. So we have gradually gotten to that guideline that we're striving for. The merit increases, this chart sort of shows where Howard ended up last year with our merit increases, and that's a big issue for us because, as you can see, we were number 7 in the state. We only give merit. We do not give COLA to employees. In order to get an increase, it's based on totally on your performance. And what has happened is with our competitor institutions, we have been losing a lot of staff because over the years, our salaries have not grown as dramatically as our peer surrounding institutions. And this is just for FY19, but if you look at 16, 17, and 18, we were number 7 in the state when it came to merit increases as well. So this is an issue for us because of the staff that we have lost. Also, when you look at our adjunct pay rates, our adjunct rates are actually lower than competitive institutions around us too. And so one of the issues that we even have, we have a partnership with Prince George's Community College at Laurel College Center. They are actually paying a lot more than we're paying, and so we've lost faculty to them because our per hour, credit hour rate is not as competitive as the others. We've tried to increase that each year, but they go up accordingly too. So those were the 3 major things in the operating budget. In the capital budget, our capital budget, 50% of that primarily is funded from the state and 50% is primarily funded from the county. The state does not fund all projects. They don't do a lot of deferred maintenance projects. They've started a new program that will go into effect in 2020 where they will start paying for some deferred maintenance projects, but they're only doing half the schools each year. So they've listed the schools that they're going to do in 2020. Howard will be in 2021, and we probably would only get about $1 million from the state when we do get the funding for that. This is our project that we're just completing now, our NST renovation, which is our Galleria, and that will be complete this year. But what we're requesting in FY 2020 mainly is our math athletics complex and then systemic renovations. What you see up here is the design money for the math athletics complex, and just to give you a little background on this, this is sort of what we call a fusion building where the two buildings will exist together with a connector. Well, it's two separate buildings with a connector. But the math building, actually, what has happened is when the state passed the completion agenda law in 2013, it mandated that all students have to take their math courses within the first 24 months of 24 credits of being at the college. And so this really put a lot of pressure on our math departments to offer the programs because students couldn't move on without getting the math. And right now, when we were looking at our wait list for classes this spring, math went on for several pages because students can't get in those courses. The building that they're in right now was built in 1982 by General Physics as an office building. And so we've had it since about 1990, but it really wasn't built as a classroom building, and we're really short on space in that building. Our athletic building also is rather old. It was built in 1969. It is a slab on concrete structure, and every time we have a heavy snow, we worry if the roof is to be there. And so that's been an issue for us too, because by the time what we're proposing here is a 4-year construction schedule, but by the time the athletic building would be completed, it would be 55 years old. So that building needs help too. The governor, in his budget, proposed $1.4 million for the design on the building, and so the county, in order for us to get the state funds, has to match that. So we just found out what the governor was proposing last Friday, and our board will be discussing tonight this request to determine, if it should be reduced now that the governor has given us a little bit less. So what would happen is the design would be, part of the design would be deferred over to future years. And then we have a number of systemic renovations that we want to go forward with too. That's about $9 million, and they're all smaller projects. Some of the bigger ones are interior improvements, and also some of the athletic field drainage issues and resurfacing of things that we need, along with some of the classroom renovations as well. Right now, Howard has a space deficit this year of about 15,000 square feet, but when you look at 10 years out, it's about 225,000 square feet. And basically, this is the listing for the state. So we are in the top 5 right now, and we'll be number 2 in 10 years out. So we're number 2 now, 10 years out. So that's part of our need. Looking at future years on our capital budget, you can see the math athletics building is up here, but then we wouldn't be asking for anything until 2025, which is when we would have the campus roadway project. And then next is a maintenance building, and then finally a continuing education building that we're looking for. But those projects wouldn't start until 2025. Just to highlight some of the accomplishments we've made, we are actually ranked in the top 20 for the best 2-year colleges in the nation by the Washington Monthly does an analysis every year. We also have had great colleges to work for 10 years in a row. This is the Chronicle of Higher Ed ranking colleges nationwide. And also recently our Board of Trustees was presented with by the Association of Community Colleges for Trustee Equity Awards and at the national conference this past year. So we won the national award for that as well. Overall, our completion rates, we have increased 150% for 2-year graduation rates from 2008 to 2016, and actually tripled our graduation rates for Black and African American and Latino students as well. And we've had about a 360% increase in transfer associate degrees, 270% increase in career associate degrees, and we have the highest percentage of degrees granted among the community colleges in the state, 148% increase. Again, some of our programs that we have started, the Howard Pride program for Black male students, that started in FY11. Now has over 205 students, and Ation is now serving 59 students. One of our big programs that started this year is Jumpstart with the public school system. Basically, this is where a student can come to our college and take courses at 50%. So this is in our budget. We actually are giving a discount to students, so it's like considered, about $574,000 is what we're subsidizing for tuition enrollment for Howard County high school students. And so they take them both on our campus, and then there's classes taught in the high schools as well. Since that program started, the spring of 2015, we've seen a 636% increase. And just to hear the testimony of one of our students, she actually last year earned 46 credits before she graduated. So she really was, ahead of her peers when she went on to college in future years. Other things that we have that we, offer our athletics program, performances, community service, a number of special events, and study abroad. We did a economic impact study a few years ago, and basically it shows that our graduates will earn about $12,000 more annually compared to someone with a high school degree, as well as an increase over their working career of about $428,000. Our taxpayers are seeing about a 4.6% increase in their rate of return, and we're generating over 5,000 jobs for the Howard County community.
Thank you very much. Our library system president will share her vision of library.
Just let me know. I am Tonya Cannon, and I'm President and CEO of Howard County Library System. I joined Howard County in April, so my first year presenting to this committee, and very delighted to be a part of it. I have in the back Angela Brave, our COO of Support Services, who works on all of our capital projects as well. I'm going to start with this. We are a 2018 5-star library. It's designated by Library Journal. And this really speaks to the ROI or the value that we receive in return to the community. So this looks at activity in our branches. Over 90% of Howard County residents are card holders with our library system. And we're seeing usage, not only in foot traffic, but also in borrowing. I'll get to some of that. This designation is attained by fewer than 1% of libraries across the nation, and we are the only 5-star library system in the state. These are some recent awards. Everything that you'll see on this slide, photos included, are from 2018. So we achieved 2 million visits, and I love to share that statistic because sometimes people think of their library of old, and our library is totally different, and we'll show you some of the things that set us apart. People are still reading in print. We had 8.2 million items borrowed, and that is the highest borrowing per capita, again, in the state, and among the highest rates in the country. 1.5 million research and assistance interactions. This goes and speaks to the value of the high-quality instructors that we have in our locations to assist our community when they come in, and attendance of over 304,000 at classes and events. We are based on a 3-pillar system. We believe that libraries equal education. Our mission is providing high-quality public education for all. So we consider all 90% of those card holders in our community the students of our library system. I'll go through those pillars. Pillar 1 is self-directed education, which is when you are able to pretty much pace your own learning and choose your own learning items. Streaming, we have pretty much a system online where we are everywhere you are. So we have audiobooks, movies, and music. We have downloadable ebooks, magazines, newspapers, and lots of learning tools online as well. Gale Courses provides 300+ online classes that are self-paced to your learning needs in a variety of classes. Lynda.com is available as well for the business community. And you'll see some there, HTML essentials, learning in Java, time management, and so forth. Learning Express is a tool that is available for grade school all the way through graduate school. So we have everything from homework help to career prep, high school equivalency tests, adult core skills, and even courses in Spanish. Our Testing and Education Center prepares those who are seeking to go into any one of these careers with a variety of tests that will help get them ready. Pillar 2 is research assistance and instruction. Those are one-on-one sessions and classes for all ages. This photo here at the top is the photo from our Elkridge Library reopening after the renovation last year. And this is typical for us. When Miller Library opened, we had to have the police out to direct traffic. It is exciting to see that many people excited in the community about learning and activity. And the great thing about that opening was that when people came in the doors, they weren't just there to see the refresh, they were actually getting down to the business of using the library, which is fantastic. The photo on the bottom, right there, my right, is from an adult STEM course. So we offer our high-tech curriculum for students, but also for adults. Typically, our classes fill up. We have quite a demand and a wait list that we are really, really struggling to meet. Most of our classes you have to sign up for in advance, and they are waitlisted. Our events, for instance, I'll show you a little bit about an author event later that we had aimed at teens and students. And when we opened it, it filled up in 9 minutes flat. And there were over 500 folks there. Here's some other students, pictures of students enjoying our courses. At the bottom there is a student reading to a dog. That is our reader program. This really helps reluctant readers and even new readers feel a lot more comfortable. Dogs are non-judgmental, and they won't laugh at you if you stutter or mispronounce a word. And you see readers really develop through this program. We also bring in and partner with many, many people throughout the community, including the Nature Center and several others. So these students are experiencing title there, but they learn through all sorts of experiences. So we have our instructors, and then we collaborate with many others. These students getting ready to take off and run there. We realize that moving from grade to grade level can be stressful for students, and so we address that as well. We have a kindergarten Here We Come class, where we actually partner with the school system to bring buses to the library, where those that are entering kindergarten for the first time can practice getting onto the bus and feeling a little more comfortable, so we can find lots of first day tears, and they are comfortable in their classroom. And then in middle school, we do some backpack relays and time combination lock relays as well. The other photos are from our high-tech and homework assistance programs throughout the system and Memphis, Columbia. HCLS operates Project Literacy, which is a program that welcomes over 250 students in over 30 languages who are either seeking to get their high school diploma, have some career goals related to adult education, and so forth. We celebrated the graduation of 10 students this past December who received their external high school degrees. Pillar 3 is instructive and enlightening experiences. We do have an A+ partnership with the schools and HCC, whereby we provide every student enrolled in Howard County Public Schools with a library card so that they can access all of our online resources in school and at home. We also have an appointed instructor from the library that serves as the liaison to every school in the county. Our school liaisons go out We make sure that they are in conversation with teachers about the learning needs of the students at that particular site. They do book tastings in the way that you would do food tastings and bring sampling of things out to get students energized about that. We work with the school system on local author events and our Chief Civility Initiative. Prior to Howard County offering the spelling bee, Howard County students did not have a path to the National Scripts Bee. They now do. Our next bee will be in March. Saket over there on my right has twice won our bee and is eligible to participate a third year and has represented the county at the national bee, placing within the top 20. He's done very, very well. This is just pandemonium. So if you've never been to a Battle of the Books event, we invite you out to take part in that. We work with the school system to have 6 high school gymnasiums available for this academic challenge. There are about 2/3 of all 5th graders that participate in this event. They read 13 books across the course of a year and then come out and answer questions, have a team name, get fun costumes, and we have many community members, several of you in this room who have served as judges for that event, and probably whose children have participated in that event. So thank you for your support. Rube Goldberg Challenge, we do with 4th graders. And again, they get kind of a wacky challenge, a science challenge in the spirit of Rube Goldberg, and we pick a winner competition as well. This is a photo from the Jason Reynolds event, that event that I told you booked up in 9 minutes. We have people calling for days, trying to still get into that event. We worked with the school system. This was held at our East Columbia location to bring in some students. And then we had some free tickets available to the community. The wonderful thing about Jason, he is actually a native Marylander from Oxon Hill. Is now a very accomplished and acclaimed author for youth. But he didn't read a book until he was 17. It was just a great story for our students to hear about overcoming adversity. And his speech was that he really just didn't find things that he could relate to. And so, again, the need for diverse materials and diverse instruction as well. But it was just an event that was enjoyed by young and mature adults alike. This is a picture of our longest table event that we've partnered with several folks across the county. It was held at the community college. We really worked to bring community members together to discuss how to make our county better, why they love living in Howard County. We will purposely sit you next to somebody that you do not know so that you can strike up a conversation and have some takeaways on next steps to make a better Howard County. It's a beautiful event. Undesigned the Red Line is currently up at our central library. If you haven't been, I encourage you to see this exhibit because the buzz around town. It is about redlining and fair and equal housing and what our path will look like in Howard County forward. This exhibit, while it tours nationally, they have tailored it specifically for Howard County, so you will see several panels that are specific to our county. And our annual fundraiser from our Friends and Foundation is Evening in the Stacks. It's coming up Saturday, the 23rd, so this is just a shameless plug. It is the best party in the county. Increasing impact in 2019, we are looking at an asset-based community development strategy. We realize that while the county has very constrained fiscal resources, one of the ways that we can increase our capacity to meet community need is to leverage the knowledge capital that's existing in the community. And so some of the things that we will be doing is reaching further out into the community, to many of our retired community members with time on their hands to volunteer with us, to do a little bit more in our library, and partnering and pairing those individuals with others in need, whether it's a program for us or not. And then early learning, we really want to be a better support for the building blocks to literacy, creating some early learning spaces in our libraries. Our art lending collection will launch this year. It is part of a bigger arts initiative, and making sure that there is arts education for everyone in our community. The Art Living Collection will lend framed photographs, many of them, very fortunately, of historic Elgin City prior to the flood, and many of our leading artists. Framed collections will also have authors come out, artists come out in the same way that we have authors out now. We're looking at maker spaces. If you've not been to our DIY Education Center at the Uxbridge branch, I encourage you to go. It is highly successful. We are doing tool lending there and also have classes on a variety of DIY projects. They have done everything from sewing to wainscoting. So just some amazing learning opportunities there. And we'd like to add a self-directed education component through maker spaces. And then services to our homebound population. We really want to make sure that we are serving everyone in our community, including those who may not be able to get to us. Our operating budget funding sources, you'll see that 88% of our budget comes from the county. We are not a county department, but we are an allied agency. 4% comes from the Department of Education, and 8% through grants. Our fiscal 20 request, board approved, is $25,985,703, and of that, $22,978,253 is the request for county. That request is up about 9% over last year, and I'll show you where that comes from. The bulk of our, like most, expenses are personnel. And you'll see the percentages there for curriculum and operations. Our operating budget challenges, as I shared with you, are definitely the staffing. We desire to serve our community better and more fully. We are very challenged in that the classes just fill up very, very fast, and the events as well. We are glad that so many members of the community look to us for those classes and for the events. We'd like to serve them a whole lot better. The 1 FTE high-tech instructor, high-tech again is our STEM education program that initially started at our Savage location and has rolled out across our system, and the demand for it is just more than we can handle. So we're looking to add one person there. We're looking to add a program manager that will help us in our ADCD initiative with equity and some of those things at the administrative level. We have no one to pretty much handle that oversight right now, so it's willing to assist our positions. And then I told you a little bit about project literacy and the students that they serve. We're looking for a part-time instructor there. And then we have COLA, regular merit increases, and security at our branches. Our operating budget is less than 2% of the county budget. So,
what is your approximate COLA request?
2%. And typically, if the county funds COLA for its employees, they will give us the money to fund it for our employees. If they do not, we do not. Last year, we did not fund COLA.
Okay, and merit increases do you have, I know it can be different by person, but do you have a bottom line of what that amounts to?
I do. And I can tell you if in just a minute. Is there another question while I'm looking for that? Just a moment. Merit increases are 3%. And it's about $454,000.
Within the entire library system, how many actual full-time employees are there?
254.
Do you have any employment volatility, losing people to other counties and adjacent areas?
We would, one of the issues that we suffer from is that our organizational chart is very flat, so there aren't always the opportunities, and we're such a great system that people stay. So sometimes people don't have the opportunity to move up as fast as they'd like. And then with the COLA sometimes. But overall, I think our staff are really, really happy here. We do have a low turnover rate. Any other questions? Our capital budget request for fiscal year 20 is $488,000, and that's for planning funds for the new central library that is slated to be part of the downtown development in Columbia. That new central branch is a business and arts education center within the Marietta district, and it's slated to be a mixed-use project with the Housing Commission. Somewhere around 120 units will sit atop the library. The library possibly being around 90 to 100,000 square feet. Fiscal year 21 has some planning funds, again, the balance of for New Central, and then some renovating funds or systemic renovations for the Glenwood branch, which is nearing 20 years of age. We have some HVAC issues there and some carpeting issues. It's our only location that still has loom carpeting on a slab, so we're doing some piecemeal patching there. Just need to do some updating in that location. And then fiscal year 22, we would do the site survey and feasibility for the new Southwest branch. And if you've been watching this, you've seen these kind of get pushed back a little bit. So our board took into consideration the county's fiscal position and is really trying to work along with the county in this request. And then these are just ways to stay engaged with us. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Invite our colleagues from the news department. Thank you. By the way, the presentations, they're either already have been uploaded or will be uploaded to the Dropbox. If anybody has technical difficulty access to them, just make sure touch base with Raul or myself, and we'll make sure that you have access to it.
I'll make parents in here. Morning.
Morning.
I'm Ellsworth Jones. I'm the Deputy Chief of Operations for the Fire Department. I'm currently filling in as the Acting Chief for Chief Gary Gardner, who most of you probably know. He retires at the end of this month. And our new chief starts February 1st, which is Lisa Myers. A couple things first to our partners in the room. Thank you. We partner with all of you. The library system, we just started something in 2018, the Pathway to Reading program that our pathway officers have been doing in elementary schools. We expanded that after meeting with the library earlier in 2018, and now our pathway officers are going to the library doing the same thing for students at the libraries. I think we started at the East Coast Library first. So we just started that program, so that's good. HCC, thank you. We partner with them on a regular basis. We've gone there for the past couple of years for their Diversity Day with Silas Craft and the other groups. They beat us terribly in basketball. Thankfully, their coach came out and told them to stop dunking on us, so thank you. So we partner with the library and obviously with the school system, and kind of to dovetail on a little bit, I know they're talking about the mental health professionals that they need in the school system. We would support that. I don't know your dynamic in terms of everything that you're doing with it, but we work closely with Mobile Crisis Team on a regular basis. We kind of help manage that program with Grassroots, and we actually just had a meeting with them at the end of 2018 discussing the calls for service at the schools, the increases in those calls for service, and the demand it's putting on the mobile crisis teams. So because of that, I know that there's a need within the school system for some kind of help. So just kind of give you a little bit of a plug. I know I'm going last, so you can't do it for me, but to give you a couple things that I'm going to cover, staffing and some of the mitigating challenges that we have. I don't break the stuff first. Cover a little bit about the Safe to Learn Act and some of the challenges associated to that. Crime snapshot for you. Everybody knows that Columbia is the safest place in America, right? So we'll give you a crime snapshot. Some of our facilities issues and concerns that we have going forward, and special events and permits. I know that that was some questions that probably people might have, and I have Captain Newbar in the back of the room because I'm not well versed on that, so I phoned a friend. If you have questions associated to that. And then I'll touch briefly on a workload study that we had done for our operations command and one that's upcoming for our dispatch center. And then some future needs that we have. So to start it off, we have currently authorized, we have 478 authorized positions. We have 14 current vacancies, and I'll touch on that on the next slide in a moment. We have 224 civilian positions authorized with 20 current vacancies, and then you see our breakdown of volunteers for our auxiliary air mounted patrol, animal patrol, and some other volunteers who come in and do some work for us in the Southern District Station. Some of the things we've been doing, because that staffing deficit that I showed you, the 14 now, was much more dramatic last year. And so some of the things we did last year to kind of help mitigate that, we held several lateral classes. And the lateral class for us is essentially advertising for officers from other agencies to kind of bail out of their agency and come over to us. So because of what we can offer here, we have great salary, great benefits, we actually probably outdo everybody around us. We do get some applicants that come in, but we're very, very, very strict on who we take. We don't want to take somebody else's problem, trying to move over here to get away from what's going on with their other agency. And quite frankly, around the country, and even around here significantly, other agencies are struggling way more than we are in keeping or getting officers to apply, or people to apply to become officers. It's a struggle. Usually we get affected by that when the economy goes up, where the economy's in great shape, less people apply to be police officers. And at the same time, because of Freddie Gray and the other incidents that happened around the country, it's not necessarily the profession everybody wants to go to, so it makes it harder for us to kind of bring people in. So because of those, we have some challenges. I'll give you an example. When I came into the department in 1989, there was 2,000 to 3,000 people that applied for the jobs when I applied. And this last go around, we probably had a couple hundred. And I'm talking 200-ish, somewhere in that range, that applied for the 25 positions that we were trying to fill. So anyway, so some of the things we did to address staffing is we held a couple of lateral classes last year. And you can see we don't get a lot. We had 2 in one class, 3 in another, and then we just had another one with 2. And that's all within the past year, year and a half. So we added 7 officers, and we're still down 14 after adding those. We held a couple of recruit classes, one Academy 42 with 15 recruits. They just, so I'm saying we're 14 down. Those recruits that I'm saying, the 15, just got released yesterday or today, coming out of their training and actually hitting the road as an officer without a field training officer with them. So we're 14 down, but we have an academy starting February 4th. It'll have 20 people in it. So if you asked me February 4th how many officers we would be down, I would say we're not. We're plus 6. Sounds good, except we won't see any of those officers until December. They're going to be in the academy for 30 weeks, and then they're going to be in field training for 15 weeks. So they won't come out until somewhere around the December timeframe. So even though paper looks good, in reality we're 14 positions down. And the county gave us the authority to go up to 25. We couldn't get that many. We couldn't get that many in the academy. We have 20 of ours, and there's a couple of others in there from other agencies. It's not unusual for us to have agencies come and run through our academy. That extra was we have an expected attrition that we know of at least 6 or more before December, me being one of them, in terms of people that are retiring and leaving the agency. So because of those known, that's why we filled extras into the academy. But as of yesterday, I got an email from another gentleman who's hitting 25 in October. He's not in that list and he's leaving. So we have unknowns that pop up on us all the time. So we expect that number to go even higher in terms of how many people will be leaving. Yes?
Good question. When you have other agencies run through the academy, do you charge them, or is it?
We do. There's a charge. I don't know what it is, but yes, there is a fee associated. We started that a couple years ago. And it's usually the smaller agencies, like Greenbelt is a traditional one that puts people through our academy. I think one of the sheriff's departments, I've been Frederick recently, put 1 or 2 through, including his own son. So they do come to us, because a lot of times it is timing for them as well, just as it is for us. So one of the issues that we have when we're running academies is we lose people. So we may say our academy starting February 4th, it takes people months to get through our process to get approved, to even get hired. And in that time frame, Montgomery County will be having an academy that starts in January. If they get offered a job before we offer them a job, they're gone, because they're going to take the first offer that they get. And we lose a lot of people to the surrounding agencies because of that. Again, though, we offer very good salary and benefits. Like Anne Arundel County just recently started offering a $20,000 bonus to get signed over a 4-year period. So it's $5,000 a year, but their salary's still lower than us. But when you're a 21-year-old wanting to be an officer and somebody offers 20 grand, a lot of times you jump at that and don't look at the long term. So we lose people because of those things going on. We're having discussions about a potential academy in September of 2019. Obviously, it hasn't budgeted, hasn't been approved, but it's discussions we've been having internally about potentially, depending on what our losses are going to be and that we can project out. Because even if we started in September, we wouldn't see those bodies until mid-2020, just because of the time frame that it takes us to put somebody through academy and training. Some of the things we've been doing to kind of mitigate these vacancies that we've had is we've been keeping positions open and not filling them so that we can handle patrol activities. Patrol is our #1 responsibility in terms of the day-to-day calls for service, and we try to keep that as close to full staffing as we can. So up until actually this week, when that academy came out, we did a whole bunch of transfers for vacancies that we had been leaving open for months. We're still leaving some currently. Last year, the executive gave us authorization for 3 new SROs and a sergeant. We haven't filled those positions. We're also still talking to the schools about how to roll that out and things of that nature, but we haven't filled that, so those are considered vacancies or positions that we're holding. A pathways officer who I think he got promoted or got moved out, we didn't fill his position, we left it vacant so that the officer would stay in patrol, so we haven't posted and filled that. We have a couple of special assignment squads, same thing. People either got transferred or promoted or retired or whatever the scenario might have been. We didn't backfill their position. We left the bodies in patrol so the officers would be on the road. And a quality assurance officer and the chief's office. So 8 total positions currently today that we're holding open that we haven't filled so that we can remain close to full strength on the road. Some of the other things we did in the past year to kind of help mitigate all these issues that we've been having, we did a patrol staffing support initiative where essentially we took the officers that aren't in patrol and specialties and we put them on an on-call status to backfill when we were having overtime issues, not overtime, staffing issues that required us to put people on overtime. So when we did that, this is how many times we were able to do it. Now we put parameters on it. They signed up well in advance. We gave them a 2-day notice before they had to work. But we only did that, whatever those numbers equal, 30 some odd times that we did it, that we actually backfilled using those positions. But they were on regular time, they weren't on overtime, so it helped mitigate some of the costs associated to it. And only 4 officers out of the 150 officers that we used to do that, only 4 were used 2 times. At the end of August, we reevaluated the program, and we ceased doing it starting on September 1st. What I would like to point out in the middle of all that, while all that was going on, everybody knows Ellicott City flood happened at the end of May. So at the end of May, through June and July, we were staffing 20 officers per shift, 12 hours a day, every single day, down on Main Street. So besides the challenges that we had meeting our patrol staffing and backfilling with these officers, we also were putting essentially 40 officers a day down on Main Street. The majority of that was on overtime. Now we get almost, is it 80%? I forget the number. We get 75. Thank you. We get most of that back from FEMA. So most of that money does come back to us, but that was a significant challenge for us throughout the summer, staffing those demands that we had. Some of the other things we did to kind of help address the patrol staffing, we pulled platoon. When we do our in-service training, we have mandated training year-round. When we do our in-service training, it pulls people off the road nonstop to go through that training, and we used to do a piecemeal. We went back to doing it as a platoon. So they all go in on one day, they all train, they do use of force, they do whatever other mandated training that might come up, active shooter scenarios. It's better for us to train them as a group anyway. So we started doing that to mitigate pulling people from patrol on a regular basis. It was an overtime cost because they all trained together on their day off, but for training purposes and for that pulling them from the road every single time that they had to pull people for training was good for us. And it reduced the number of training sessions down to 20 from 32 we had to do. We canceled or delayed some training because of the Ellicott City flood and the staffing concerns that we had. Some in-service training, rifle training in our CIT school, which was scheduled for June. We do 2 a year, trying to get all of our officers training, crisis intervention training. We do 2 a year, June and January, but because of the flood staffing issues that we had, we canceled that. We'll have one actually this week is going on right now. And working with grassroots and others on some responses to people that are experiencing mental health challenges or in crisis. Last year, the Maryland Safe to Learn Act was kicked off, and in that there were some requirements associated to it. The biggest one for us, most of the requirements actually fell on the school system, not on us. The biggest requirement out of that required us to have an SRO or adequate coverage for every school. So We had already started a foot patrol program with the schools before that, where we mandated our officers to do a foot patrol at the schools, whether they're private or public. And after this came out, that's when in the same time frame, we added the middle school SROs and the sergeant that aren't implemented yet, but were added. But in discussions, we feel that our foot patrol program actually meets, for the most part, that adequate coverage portion of it, in terms of at least meeting the letter of the law, making sure that we're meeting with each of the school systems. There's other stuff that we actually go through. The active shooter training, we did one in February with the fire department. It wasn't in conjunction with the schools, but we did a full-scale exercise in February with the fire department at the American Cities building in downtown Columbia. Just this past Sunday, we did an active shooter drill, smaller scale, with the fire department and one of our patrol platoons at the Maryland School for the Deaf, and we have probably at least 10 more planned that we're going to be doing for the rest of the year. We're going to move them around the county so that we hit each fire station and each platoon. So we kind of work together as a team, working on active shooter training as well as what we call rescue task force, and that's getting in and getting the people that are wounded after we secure a certain area of the building. So that's ongoing and continuing. And we just were reached out to by the school. They're doing an active shooter training for every school in the county. They want to try, I know they have a real challenge. They want to try and get it all done this semester. So they want to hit every school. So we're going to be working with them on doing active shooter training. Yes?
That includes elementary schools or just middle and high schools?
The intent that we got from them is to do all the schools. It won't be the same.
Right.
Right. So that's some of the things that we're working on with them. And then there's some other things, the SROs coordinate with patrol and lockdown drills, knowing which doors they have access to. Because the school's in lockdown, we have to still be able to get in. So we've worked with the schools and working on a system to work with that remotely. And then we have a requirement for SROs to complete all training. There are certain types of training. By the act, that's a requirement, but the state has not created the training. So even though it's a requirement, it's not created. But there is a school resource officer training program, a nationally accredited one that all of our officers go through that are in the SRO program. They've all been trained in that. And then we work with the PTA and others doing safety presentations. Some of the challenges we face, crime's constant evolution of it. I mean, our crime numbers are ridiculously low, and I'll show you that. It's not great. They're wonderfully low. Change that. Wonderfully low, but there's always constant evolution of crime, especially technology. There are challenges for us, and one of the things we do talk about is the digital forensics unit, which we think we really need in terms of, how many people in here have a phone? Everybody? That's not a phone, that's a computer, that does everything. And every crime that you can think of, human trafficking, murder, sex crimes, fraud, everything can happen in the palm of your hands. And so every time we're dealing with a crime, a lot of those crimes, we're seizing those devices, and then that puts a huge demand on us for looking into certain points. Always a challenge for us, which we talked about, staffing, retirement, and attrition, the opiates, the heroin overdoses, and I'll touch on that in a couple minutes. That's still a huge challenge for us. We were just going back and forth in emails with the health department yesterday. Special event management, my phone and friends in the back, if you have questions about that when we hit that part. Facilities I'll talk about, and some budget limitations, which we got that wonderful presentation last Thursday. Quick crime snapshot, and I'm sorry this is so small, it's the way I shared it, so it's my fault, not theirs. But if you look on the right, the 2017 to 2018 crime comparisons for homicide, street robbery, commercial robbery, aggravated assaults, burglary, vehicle theft, theft from vehicles, every one of them is down significantly, and including over the 4-year average, every single one of those crimes. I would love to say it's all us. Okay, it is. Next week when it goes up, you're going to say it's all us. But the economy does play a huge role in that, quite frankly. When the economy's good, people do less bad things. There's less stress in people's lives and all those other things that go along with it. That said, we have a lot of great crime initiatives that we do internally. Our repeat offender unit that makes a huge effect on those guys that go out there and do 50 burglaries. If we can get them early, hopefully we can stop them after they do 2 or 3. Love to stop before they do 1, but that's a little difficult. But when we get those repeat offenders and we jump on them really quickly, it stops those crime sprees. Our neighborhood community resource officers are working hand in hand with our crime analysis section. In this past year, they reduced quality of life calls for service, which we call like disorderly, loitering, CDS violations, things that you would call because your neighbor's making you mad because of A, B, or C, whatever it might be. Those quality of life calls for service, once they targeted the areas where we started seeing that influx, reduced by 14% of the villages. So because of those crime initiatives, it certainly helps. But can't argue with the numbers. It was a wonderful case. Chief Gardner picked a great time to retire. Opioids and overdoses, or the overdoses and opioids. That's a challenge for us. That's across the country. And I'm not going to highlight everything. I'll do one or two things here. The overdose deaths went from 2017 to 2018 from 57 to 40. That's great. Wonderful. The opioid overdoses went up from 171 to 187. It's almost an equal switch. And what we introduced during that time frame was Narcan. So we have, as you see, the Narcan numbers continue to go up from 53 in 2015 to 189 uses in 2018. And it's the public awareness campaign that's putting them at all the AEDs, it's putting them in the public's hands, and police hands, fire hands. So we're saving more people, but we're still seeing a lot of overdoses, quite a few actually. So that's a huge challenge for us. And part of the discussion we had with the health department was talking about more health initiatives and awareness programs. It's not an enforcement. We hardly ever arrest anybody that's related to an overdose ever. The law doesn't allow it unless it's something felony related. So, facilities updates, some of the things that we're doing, our record section is moving, well, let me take a proposed to move over to the gateway section. We are cramped. If you go into our record section now, there's no room for expansion in there at all. And they're actually probably below the industry standard in the size cubicles that they're sitting in. They are cramped. So one of the things we've been working on, and I was under the impression it might happen in May if we do it, is that we're going to move over to gateway. To allow them to be able to expand out from their current footprint. We did an off-site property and evidence move. We've been using the warehouse down at the Dorsey building, and now we have an off-site, much more robust evidence and storage room area for us that we just moved to. We're working on the capital project for the 3rd District. I don't know when that would be expected. I would expect that would be further down the road. Part of our spacing issues, and I have a matrix or study that I'll show you in a couple minutes that talks about something about that as well. In the meantime, we've got some interim plans that we've been working on internally, and one of them is that shift of records to another location so we can expand our footprint in our district station to help get people out of closets. And we actually have people in converted closets. Special events management. In, I guess, last year, sometime last year, they created the new law that started the charging for the special events permits. So the numbers are, we had 224 special events in 2018, calendar year, and 31 at Meriwether. The related cost associated to that was $1.5 million for us. That's up, I think, just a little. I think last year was 1.4, so it's not up that much, but it's still pretty significant cost associated to it. That puts a huge demand on us, especially in the summertime. So when you saw we had the Elephant City flood, we had the patrol staffing issues, and also had Meriwether in full swing. So we had, let's see, the overall total overtime budget, but I'm sure it was pretty significant during this time frame. The new legislation consolidated all this together, changed the time frame for us for approving applications and started some fee processes. There's an application fee, $50 to apply, and that's after we determine you need a permit. So like whatever event you're saying you want a permit for, you actually need it for, and we say that we have the resources to do it, and we get charged $50 for the application. And then this is where it gets kind of muddy, and I may point to a friend in the back here. There is a permit fee that's associated to it. That permit fee is, if you're with a nonprofit, you get $1,500 without any, you don't have to pay the first $1,500. Anything above that, you got to pay 50% of whatever the cost is associated to the entities that have to help you put that on, whether it's police and fire, or police and rec and parks, or whatever it might be. So that they would have to pay that. If you're not a nonprofit, you're a for-profit, you got to pay 100% of that. We didn't start that until January. So we don't think we've even applied a fee to anybody yet, because the process just opened up. Chief Gardner mailed out a letter at the beginning of January identifying that process to people. got some people calling and letting us know that at least one or two that said, well, we can't do our event there. Because you have some nonprofits that are doing events, they may raise $2,000 or $3,000 if that. You have to spend $1,000 to us, sometimes it's not worth it, or maybe they're not raising even enough to cover the costs associated. So I will tell you, we're not the only agency here doing it, not here, the only agency in the area doing it. We became a very popular place to go to do your races because we were the only one in the area that wasn't doing it. So everybody was coming to us to say, we want to host a race in your area. So it's not that we're trying to be mean, we're getting along with the industry standard and trying to kind of restrict how many people come into us. Now that said, we're getting kickback, but this is a law. This isn't our policy. This is a law. Unless the law changes, this is what we're doing. Those two fields in there are blank only because the good captain was working on that data for me at the last minute, and just the special events cost us a little over $623,000, which is up from 2017, and Meriwether cost us $929,000, which is up from about $800,000. Yes.
So of the revenue that is projected to come in this year based on the fees, how much of your cost do you think you will cover?
Yeah.
So the way the law was written, the council defined special events and they defined concerts. And they put in the law that they would adapt the resolution to develop the fee schedule that the major just talked about. The fee schedule that the council put in only applies to special events. So if you looked at 2018, there's approximately $300,000 to $400,000 spent for nonprofit events. So, you know, each one of them gets $1,500 off plus half. So you're looking at about $150,000 to $200,000 potentially from the nonprofit events if they stay and want to have their event. For-profit events accounted for about $160,000, and if they stay, they would have to pay 100%. So you're looking at about $300,000 to $400,000 in revenue is what we might get back. Just to clarify that 2018, those numbers aren't 100% solid because we have estimated costs and actual costs, and I only had the actual costs up till October, so I had to use some of the projected costs for the event. So if anybody's bringing those numbers down, they may go, they'll probably generally go up a little higher.
Okay, so last week, they briefly touched on this particular issue. And they said that Meriwether does not have to pay, is that true?
So that's what he was just defining,
As
special events versus concerts, the way the law is written.
So does the law exempt, I apologize for not having read it. So is Meriwether, do they only do concerts or do they do special events? So
They're defined as a concert venue, not as a special event. And in the resolution that adds to the law, the resolution only talks about permit fees for special events. I was not involved when the law was put in by the last council. From what I've been told, and I don't know if it's 100% true because I wasn't involved, that because Meriwether pays taxes and brings people in and brings revenue, that was the reason why it was defined between concert and special events. But I can't 100% say that because I wasn't involved in the process.
But the way it's written now, we don't charge them. I want to reiterate that part about it's a law. The inquiries we get on it is what can you do to change that? It's not us. We can't change it. In 2017, we had which they finished at the end of, or at the beginning of 2018, we had a private outside company come in and do a workload study to review our staffing and our operations, which operations for us is mostly our patrol, but a couple of other ancillary units as well. In And in that study that they did, they recommended that we get 12 new officers. It says 2019, it says it's actually fiscal year 2020, if I'm not mistaken. So their recommendation was 12 new officers to meet the demands, and that's after meeting with the county, finding out growth potential, the areas that are expected to increase in population and the demand for calls for service associated with them. So they made a recommendation of us hiring 12 new officers. If we go to the 3rd District Station, there's also a recommendation on top of that of 10 new officers to help them and run that district station. Obviously, the proposal for that would probably be at least 5 years down the line. But the 12 is something that they recommend now. And some of the other things we asked them to do is look at our calls for service, our response times, and the workload analysis for each of our officers. And in doing so, they came away with a beat realignment recommendation, which we developed a committee that just finished a report at the end of 2018 about whether or not to adhere to some of their recommendations. And the reason we did that is that you could have an officer that's what we call the Frank sector, but let's say it works on the western end. And the demands for calls for service during the day will peak at a certain time. But that officer's calls for service are nowhere near the calls for service for somebody who works downtown Columbia, Town Center, Long Reach, Oakland Mills, whatever those buildings should do. The demands for the calls for service on the officers are not equal. And we can't equal, because you also have to worry about response time. Somebody calls 911 on the western end, they don't want to wait for a guy from Columbia. So we still have to deploy officers out there, but their workloads are nowhere near equal. But they're also the proactive time where they can do things that we ask them to do. Community policing, specific traffic enforcement is very restricted. Not in the western end, they have a little bit more time, but they also have less crime and less things like that to deal with. But in the Columbia area, they're extremely restricted, especially during the time frames that we want them to do it. And that's what this study kind of showed us. It says during these time frames, and I'm going to get it wrong, it's like from 2 in the afternoon or 10 in the morning till like 8 in the evening, somewhere main time of day where they're busy handling accidents and calls for service, they can't do as much proactive time. Matter of fact, the disparity is plus or minus 40% between the beats. So some officer in the western end may have 40% more time to do that kind of stuff, while the guy in Columbia doesn't because of the calls for service. So they made a recommendation on beat realignment to kind of equal that workload more so, using the current staffing that we have, not adding positions. And in doing that, I think it brought it down to plus or minus 7%. So the beat realignment committee that made a recommendation. Now it'll be up to the new chief when she comes in whether she wants to implement that program or not. So that's still in the works currently. Some of the additional future needs that we talked about, that 12 positions that they recommend, so some of the things that we see additional future needs for are sworn police officers, could be for things like our digital forensics unit. Those are not patrol, those are specialty units. And if the way things work in the police department, if I create a unit, middle school SRO program is an example. You saw how long it takes us to hire an officer to get them through training. It takes a year almost. If I create that unit today, that body comes from patrol. So if somebody came to me today and said, it's really important you put 2 mental health officers in our mental health unit because of the extreme risk protective order, which we did at the end of last year. It's a huge concern for us. We pulled 2 people off the road, took them off that staffing and put them in that unit. It'll be a year before we see anybody replace those 2 bodies. So you may have an immediate demand, but you're going to lose it from services for day-to-day operations.
One thing I want to point out about, since we're talking about sworn officers, our police department, despite the challenge, in the past several years have hardly added any new sworn officer from authorized position, other than we added a few SROs for school security. Excluding that, their sworn officer authorized level, if I recall correctly, grew by only 0.1% each year in the past several years, despite the fact the population have been growing and other challenges because of this system.
Most recent things I can say we added were the 2 to the mental health because of the demands on that. We went from a 2-person unsworn and civilianized to 4 by adding a civilianized officer and a supervisor to oversee it. And if anybody knows about the extreme risk protective order, that's when somebody has some concerns about it. And a family member can do it, mental health professional or law enforcement can apply for a protective order to seize all the weapons out of the house. And that's a huge liability. So we've added 2 people to that unit to oversee that program, plus the other issues in terms of mental health calls for service that we've had in the county. So anyway, the future needs are personnel, animal control. We haven't added people down there in ages. They're always active, not always, they're really pushing for us to add some personnel down there. Communications compliance officer, expanding our traffic enforcement resources. That's our biggest complaint. Biggest complaint is speeding, reckless driving, inattentive drivers. And then there are always our yearly continued fleet enhancements. We're on the road 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We wear those cars out. That's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you so much.
All right.
Given the time we have that part, I want to thank all our speakers today for putting together very comprehensive information for everybody here. If you have follow-up questions, feel free to email me. I'll do our best to send to speakers if they have the ability to provide them with my information on that. Our next week's meeting is January 29th, which is Tuesday at same time, 7 o'clock. And that meeting is going to probably talk about continuation discussion on public safety with our fire department as well as the detention center. The corrections will be here as well. And we'll also hear from our agencies on some other infrastructure needs here from our DPW and other departments here. Thank you very much for coming, and hopefully today's session is informative for everybody. And thanks everybody